Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
And welcome into Purple Access, recording a day earlier than ordinary because of the Vikings Access schedule on Thursday with a Monday night game. Actually, the whole week is sort of goofy for the Vikings. It is Judd, it is Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune sports columnist, and my former partner in crime on the Vikings beat. Chip, let's just start here because I've been yakking about this for 3 days now. Give me your takeaways, good and bad, coming off of Sunday, because I do think that definitely put that definitely took some air out of the bubble of Vikings fans.
Yeah, not a lot of good. I guess the defense played okay early, more than okay. But surprising, I guess, is the word I would say, just how poor they played offensively. Obviously, Sam Darnold, I think nerves got him. He just looked nervous, and the stage and all that, the bright lights and the crowd noise and the intensity. We've seen him be amped up before and have some accuracy issues in terms of throwing high, but this was off the charts for him. The number of overthrows that he had in the first quarter. I kept waiting, Judd, as I watched it, I kept waiting. I was like, okay, he's going to make a throw or O'Connell's going to say something to get him settled down, and he never settled down. And then it kept it was like sharks in the water with the defensive game plan that Aaron Glenn came with. My colleague Andrew Kramer, I'm sure you've seen him too, the stats with the 0 blitzes, 14, which has never happened in a game this year. The number of times he was hit, it was just number of times they played man coverage, which they don't see that often. They played it, I think, the second most of any team in the NFL this year. So it'll be interesting to see what O'Connell does this week to get the team to regroup emotionally and mentally, because that was my one thing I talked about or thought about last week is we put so much on this game, and there's so much stakes on it, so much attention and so much hype and build up and all that. Well, it wasn't a losing, you're going home. There's still the playoffs to be had. And it's like,
right.
It almost felt like it had a playoff intensity to it without the ramifications.
Right.
And now, obviously, there's big ramifications between 1 and 5, but, they have to regroup and pick themselves up and say, okay, whatever happened there, we can't let that game beat us twice. And so I'm curious to see. We're taping Wednesday. We'll be out there tomorrow for access. First time we really had access to the players since that game, other than post game. So I'm curious to kind of see what the vibe is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, and I agree with all of your statements. I did think it was so. Here's something I found intriguing. Okay, and I might be trying to read a little bit too much into this, but I don't think so. One of the most interesting things I thought, Chip, was O'Connell postgame on Sunday was shaken. Like you could tell. And I guess my question is, and my dime store opinion is, I think he was shaken because of what you just said, which is he couldn't get Darnold settled down.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like I'm being a jerk or I'm being dismissive, but I mean, I really am convinced that O'Connell is the brains to Darnold's athletic ability. Because Sam is he is God gifted. There's no question about that. But I think the processing thing takes some time. And I think, and when you now see, Chipper, the video that they do from the sideline, when O'Connell's mic'd up and he's talking to Darnold and he's like literally saying, say this in the huddle, like try to calm this down, try and do that.
Yeah.
It sort of emboldens my take, but I think O'Connell was thrown, and this is where I'm with you and seeing now how they get it back. I think O'Connell was really thrown because for the first time, I think he felt like he just sort of lost all control of Sam, unless you're talking about the Jacksonville game, but they still won that game, and Jacksonville was, bad team.
Well, that's it. I mean, Jacksonville's not Detroit. And it's interesting because it felt like Detroit blitzed every down. It wound up to be whatever it was, 14-0 blitzes. And I can't remember the percentage, but it was a high percentage, obviously. Which I thought there'd be more like quick hitting screens or something to try to get one to combat that, but one to just make Sam feel good. But it's like, I think a couple things. Sam has been so good against the blitz all year, and so rarely do teams say, you know what, we're going to single coverage Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and I think I think it sucked them into, we got to make him pay for this. We got to make him pay for this, and it kept cascading the other way where the pressure was coming. The line couldn't protect him. He was, he obviously was fighting the nerves and accuracy issues. And so it's just like, well, yes, but we got to punish them for taking this approach with the single man coverage and the blitzes. And we've been so good at this all year. And it imploded on him. It imploded on him. And, I want to, excuse me while I call up the thing, because my colleague Ben Gessling had this stat. I just saw it today. I wasn't on Twitter a lot yesterday. Did you see this stat, Judd?
Which one?
Because I was screaming in the red zone. It's like, you got to run the ball or run the ball more here. Or
yes,
I'd been okay with a field goal in one of those situations. I know you hate kicking field goals inside there because, especially against Detroit. But let me call it up here. When we were, when they got in that low red zone, 10-yard lines. This was Gessling's tweet. According to Sports Info Solutions, which is a website that tracks, analytics, Vikings running backs have been hit at the line on 72.2% of their runs inside the opponent's 10-yard line. That's the highest rate in the league. Per Sports Info Solutions, 50% of the Vikings runs inside the 10 have gone for 0 or fewer yards. That's the second highest rate in the league behind the Dolphins. So we were always screaming, because I think they had 9 passes, only 2 runs down there. I don't know if some Kevin's just given up, said we can't do it, but that's going to make it awfully hard to win and score down there when you're one-dimensional, and they know that's what you're going to do.
This is why they have to go get and pay for an interior lineman this offseason. The money, two would be
minimum.
great, but Chipper, we covered. So Matt Burke was really good, okay?
Yeah,
but we covered Steve Hutchinson, who was at the time the highest paid guard. And at that time, it was like, whoa, the Vikings are paying a guard. Why are you paying a guard? And it's like, we saw it first. Steve Hutchinson made everyone on that line better and meaner. And it's an attitude. It's yes, Hutch is a Hall of Fame talent, but he also is a son of a bee. And he brought that. This team ain't got no snarl up front. And I don't know your tackles need a ton of snarl. Like tackles, it helps if they have snarl. And I think
they need athleticism.
O'Neal can be ornery, but yes, they need athleticism. Yes, exactly. Those guys in the trenches in the middle, this is the problem. And yes, I think it's incredibly detrimental in the playoffs in this time of year, right? When you literally, I mean, that was a playoff preview and we saw some of the problems. On the play calling, I was on my couch saying the same thing. Like, just shorten up the passing game. Quick passes. You just got to do something, Kevin. But then, you go back and watch it. And Kevin schemed up, because of how the Lions were playing, how many open looks. Yeah. And the red zone was a free-for-all. I mean, that Jordan Addison standing.
That was that's
and
the
he
one,
doesn't even look. So
no, John, he looked at him. Go back and watch Matthew Collar. I was watching his breakdown today.
Yep.
It's a rub route that I think it's Naylor.
It's Naylor. And Jefferson's on the left side.
Yeah, and Darnold's looking at him and doesn't throw it.
But then he turns around and throws to Jefferson. And he overthrows him. Yeah. And then he had Jefferson. He schemed Jefferson wide open, and Darnold had pressure, and the ball might have been tipped, but it was only tipped because he takes too long. And that's the thing, is we've talked about this, the time to get rid of the football, right?
Yeah.
Because we always come back to, well, the offensive line sucked. Well, folks, if you're back there playing patty cake, at some point in time, you can't be always faulting. I actually fault the line more for the lack of the run game than I do anything to do with pass protection.
Well, and some of the, people say Sam holds the ball so long, and he does. And I think some of that's because we laud the fact that he had the most 20-yard pass completions this year of any quarterback in the NFL. Those take time. Like, the ball doesn't come out of your hand when you have the vertical passing game. And so,
you're right.
But I think the Addison one was the most alarming to me, because he's looking at him and he's wide open, and it's just, he didn't throw it.
But he goes away from. But he looks.
He goes
at
away
him,
from it,
and then he goes away from him. That's what I'm saying is he looks, and the route's working.
yeah.
And Darnold just goes right to Jefferson.
Yeah, and I don't know. To me, I think it's as much mentally and just the nerves, Judd. I think the nerves got the best of him that game. I mean, he just looked rattled and unsettled, and I know that was probably was the most hostile environment that he's played in. It sounded incredible on TV and the stakes and all that.
Yeah.
So that to me, O'Connell, this is as much about this week mentally and emotionally, and maybe he got it out of his system. Maybe he experienced the big game nerves and he'll be fine. I think he will. I think he'll be better. You can say, well, are the Rams going to copy what the Lions did defensively? I don't think people are going to take that kind of approach where you're having 14-0 blitzes. Now they may, or so much man coverage. And you know what? Let's give the Lions credit too, because there wasn't a ton of separation after those first couple series in the red zone. They battled pretty good. Now we can say they held a bunch. I mean, I think Jefferson said that, and we saw that on some of those. But you know what? If they're letting you play that way,
right? That's the thing. Yeah, exactly right. That's a question of officiating crews. But here's the thing, that was very much a playoff game. The other thing too is I think the difference in the approach to Darnold, and they didn't do it illegally, but they followed through on the hits.
Yeah.
That reminded me a lot of when I was with you in the 2009 NFC Championship game, because with or without a bounty at that time, the plan is we're going to kick your ass. Like, we're literally going to hit you you're going to pay for everything that you do. And so Darnold, now all of a sudden the pressure's on. I do think he freaked out, but furthermore, he then was punished. And I'm sorry, Chipper, but you just don't ordinarily see that in week 8, right? Like you might get blitzed, but you're not blitzed like that. And Detroit, and again, Detroit was without, basically all of their starters, their best players, Hutchinson, but they punished Darnold. And I think Darnold, it felt like Darnold mentally and physically lost the will to play, which does concern me. I do have trepidation about this. Yeah. Although I'm with you. I think O'Connell can get him back.
Yeah, I think they sped him up so much that he just was, trying to get the ball out quick and seeing where it's coming from. Dan Campbell had a quote. Kramer had it in his sidebar from there where he said, I think because of all their, their injuries and where they're at personnel wise, he basically said, paraphrasing, if we don't do something drastic, he's going to pick us apart. That was a drastic game plan. Like, you just don't see that kind of game plan.
Right.
I'm curious to see if there's some semblance of it from the Rams, but I doubt that you're going to see that kind of just all out. We're bringing everybody. We're going to try to, zero blitz you and play man coverage on Jefferson.
The Rams are better. The Rams are actually better defensively, but the game plan. Well, and down to KO, they were all caught by surprise. It was very, very clear.
Well, you could tell the way Aaron Glenn was calling that game, and O'Connell. I go back to I think he got in that mindset of we got to make them pay for playing this way, and it just wasn't working. And so it was a bad game. It was a bad game all the way around. And but I think this gives them an opportunity to say, okay, let's reset. Look at what happened. Get Darnold back. I'm sure there were some fundamentals that went haywire for him too, but I think
his footwork was awful.
But that probably was the nerves and the getting sped up by the pressure, and so it's been a veteran group. They've been resilient. They've kind of, I don't want to say that 14 wins and just say a really, really bad game is going to doom them. I think they can go out there and play well. I think they can go out there and win. I mean,
agreed.
The Lions. I'm picking their staff predictions. I picked them to win by I think 3 points. I think the Lions are really good. I think offensively, I think they put so much pressure on you. I think that environment's unbelievable. I think the way that Campbell coaches with his aggressiveness and the fourth downs puts pressure on you to try to match that, or it's just there's an emotional, mental aspect with going against a team that's that good talent wise. And we talked about the offensive line, Judd, with the Vikings. The Lions' offensive line is just so good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think the way they play and the bravado and the swagger, you got to be willing to match that, you know.
Yes, yeah, and you can't shrink. The Darnold thing. So I agree with you on the Rams game. I think that the Vikings can win that game. I don't want to say that they have a good chance, but I think they definitely have a chance. But what you said earlier about Darnold is what concerns me the most, and that is O'Connell couldn't get him back for an entire game. Like, I think O'Connell was probably thinking, okay, halftime, we're going to go in, we're going to settle this down, and the final score makes us think now, well, the Vikings got blown out. Number one, no, they did not. The defense gave up 10 points in the first half, 17 points through 3 quarters, and it was an eminently winnable game. And so I think O'Connell thought, okay, I'm going to get this back. I'm going to get it back. And so, you know, now I think going into the Rams game, Chipper, among the really interesting subplots or sidebar storylines is this. Darnold, in this sense, this game is going to be worth millions to him.
Yeah.
If he does this again, I don't think you can franchise him, because I think you might get stuck with him. Like, this game will define his next contract.
Yeah, and he 100%. And he's done a good job this season in terms of blocking out all that stuff, his future, his contract, his situation, all that. It hasn't affected his play. This is different, right? Because he hasn't played like he did at Detroit. I mean,
absolutely.
That was one where, you know, he was so off and so rattled, it made you think, whoa. If he'd have gone there and just had an average bad game, you know, you'd be like, okay, that happens.
Yeah.
This was missing on a handful of touchdown passes that
he couldn't get picked. He was missing receivers so bad he couldn't get picked by Detroit.
Yeah. And so if you back it up and do that again, now is he thinking about that? I don't know. Maybe I can't pretend to get inside of his head. Maybe he's great at blocking everything. I don't know, but it's true. It's there. I mean, you're human. You know, you're thinking about everybody thinks about their future. So, but you hope that he can, and through whether it's Josh McCown or Connell, build him back up, get him focused on this and not all the other stuff, and really prepare in a way that he feels confident going out there. And I do think, don't you think the way he starts is going to be so important that they have to come with a game plan that gets him some completions early? Whatever I would go to him and say, Sam, give me your 5 best pass plays that you love. Yeah. I don't care. We're going to script those. Those are going to be the 5 things we do. I don't care if we score, but tell me 5 passes that you can complete in your sleep, because that's what we're going to call to get you in a rhythm.
Yes. And I think now from O'Connell's standpoint, I think he has to come with I start off with some short passes. Yes. The Jefferson, that's awesome. Yeah. Addison, I don't care. But I start off with, I want to get him in a rhythm and get his mind, because it's weird. You bring up a point that until Sunday night, I don't think we had seen, which is one of the things I've credited with Darnold throughout the season is his ability to tune out the bad.
Yeah.
You know, like ordinarily it's like he forgot, you know, he throws a pick. Next series he comes back and they score a touchdown. So like he had done that a lot, and that's what sort of surprised me about he's not tuning. Okay, he's going to tune out next series, and it never happened.
Yeah, I mean we've seen the Sam Darnold commit turnovers. I mean, we saw it at, Jacksonville and those, but that wasn't from being rattled. That was poor decision making or just poor fundamentals or whatever. This was something different where he's just completely overthrowing guys or not throwing it to him when they're wide open. So that, I think that, I mean, it's obviously alarming. That's why I say, I think how he starts and what O'Connell comes up with the script for him is very important, because it's like, if he comes out and he's overthrowing guys again, he's erratic, I don't know that you're going to be able to get him back. But if he comes out and you pick, things again, passes he makes in his sleep.
Yep.
That he feels good, and he gets in a rhythm. Maybe he can just excel and go play then, right? He's into the moment, he's into the game, and not. I don't think the environment is going to be anywhere near what we saw in Detroit. That sounded. I mean, we saw the guys, our beat crew that was there tweeting, just saying it was incredible and unbelievable how loud and just revved up and on fire that place
it's a
was.
Great place because
shouldn't use the on fire the analogy with what's going on with Los. And speaking of which, speaking of which, Gessling talked to Brian McCarthy, or the NFL PR guy, said they're monitoring the fires. I don't know how that'll impact by Monday, but something to monitor. But yeah, they need to get him. That I don't think the crowd's going to be what we saw in Detroit. So I would take out everything they could do. And the other thing is, Judd, I thought they abandoned the run. Forget the red zone. I just think they went away from it too soon. I think they need to really try to establish that if they can, because they were getting some chunks. I mean, they were getting some yardage with the run.
Well, and you can't abandon it completely. And they sort of, and it's weird because I will say this for 2025 season, that this has to get fixed.
Yeah.
The
interior line, the interior offense. I mean, cornerback, always, that's going to be a focal point. I think both interior lines. Now the defensive interior has been better than I thought they would be.
Yes.
But offensive interior line, they have to absolutely. I think you need two guys, Judd.
A center and a guard.
Yeah, or two guards, center. Yeah, I mean, three preferably. I mean,
right.
But you can't spend all your resources on one.
Yeah,
you can't do three, but at least one. I think two would be ideal.
Yeah, and they just can't. I mean, you can't continue to ignore this. I will say this too: as much as I like him, and if he would come back at the right salary, Aaron Jones can't be your guy because he's just banged up too much. The Packers didn't move off him because they don't like him. He's great in the room, and when he's healthy, he's a pretty talented guy. But they replaced him with Josh Jacobs because Jacobs is a workhorse. Yeah. And Aaron is just not going to be. And it's not just age. I mean, it's age, and it's the fact that I think, he's not that big a guy.
Yeah, body type.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think you got to definitely take another look. And I'm not saying go out and spend big, but I think you definitely have to take another look at, your red zone running back, for instance.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's so hard to score down there anyways. And if you're getting hit at the line or losing yards on the run, and you say, well, okay, we can't do it, we're just going to throw it. Teams are too good. They're going to figure out ways to take that away if you're one dimensional. So they've got to be able to figure out a way to run the ball in short yardage, whether it's goal line or wherever. They just have to be better at that, and it starts with fixing the interior offensive line.
All right, the Rams game. Let's talk about it. What are your expectations here?
So I do think I wrote this in my preview thing. As long as I've covered the NFL, when everybody's going one way, expect it to go the other way, right? And all we've heard is doom and gloom. That it's going to be one and done. Vikings are done and all that. I think this team has more pride than that. I think they got more fight than that. I think they got more talent than that. I do think that O'Connell will get Darnold in the right mindset, and also with the right opening script to get him in a flow and get him confident and feeling good about it. It's not an excuse, but if you try to draw correlations from the first time, I mean, that was a short week. That was a Thursday night game, and sometimes those things you never know how that mean. Everybody has to do it, so it's not a blanket excuse. But Thursday night games are tricky when you're saying this happened. I do think Brian Flores will come up with a good scheme that will at least disrupt Stafford and their wide receivers enough to give the offense a chance to score. I think it'll be like 24-21 Vikings. I just think the Lions are a notch above everybody. And I think that environment was really hard to play in. And it's not to say that the Rams won't have a good crowd or won't be play. I mean, the playoff pressure is going to be there, but I think they regroup. I really do.
I have major concerns at quarterback, just because the pressure got to him in Detroit. This is an actual playoff game, but I agree with you. The environment won't be as close. I do think O'Connell will adjust for him. So yeah, I think the Vikings have I don't know who I'm going to pick yet, but I think the Vikings have. I think that this is going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be a close game. And look, I mean, if he has a good day, Matthew Stafford pretty damn good as well. They're still, it's funny. The Rams got off to a horrendous start, so it sort of colored their entire season. But the reality is, the Rams are pretty damn good. The X factor that interests me, and I have thought about this just a little bit, but what interests me is the McVay O'Connell matchup.
Yeah.
McVay is a hell of a coach, super respected. He's younger than O'Connell, but he's O'Connell's mentor.
Yeah.
And like we've seen that affect games as well. So I just think that there's a lot of really good storylines, but we're in for a close game.
Yeah, I think I think it'll be close. The one thing about O'Connell going against McVay is like they know each other as well as any. There's going to be no surprises. So it's just really who puts together a game plan that you execute better than the other one, right?
Right.
And so, but it really is like I think Flores will come up with a good scheme. Was that the first game back with Puka when they played there, or was that?
And he said at his press conference yesterday, Flores did that they didn't expect Puka to play, and so they hadn't game plan for him.
That's it. Yeah. So there's a little bit of an element of surprise there.
Yes.
They know now, what they're in store for. And I do think O'Connell has a good coaching staff. I think it was funny seeing O'Connell talk Monday at the podium, and he was kind of gritting his teeth a little bit.
Interesting.
I think they were both probably shocked, like you said, angry, little embarrassed.
Yeah.
I'm guessing there's going to be some long hours at their facility this week.
This is
getting after it.
This is the O'Connell we don't see.
Yeah, the angry one. The kind of the.
He doesn't like getting embarrassed.
Their pride was wounded. I mean, for his offense to play, it's not like Flores' defense was the problem. It was O'Connell's offense and his quarterback, who's been so great, that looked like that. So I'm guessing, because he has we don't see it, but I think he has a fiery side to him.
Oh yeah.
That I'm guessing is going to come out this week in terms of not with his players and screaming at him a lot, but just in terms of we got embarrassed. That was not good. And I think he's going to really try to have a good game plan for Monday night.
I think he was very astounded with what happened with Darnold, and I think he was probably questioning a lot of things because, he hasn't run in. I mean, against the Colts and Jaguars, Darnold threw a combined 5 picks. Vikings won both of those games. In the games the Vikings lost previous to Sunday, Darnold actually did, they actually held up fairly well in the Rams game, which by the way came 4 days after a Lions game. So yeah, I'm with you. And the only thing that I can go back to on, that we sort of know about O'Connell's fiery, extremely competitive personality is that the clip that was in the Netflix Receiver documentary series after was a week 2 last year against Philadelphia where fumbles had cost the Vikings the game. And there's a camera outside the locker room, but you can hear O'Connell screaming, that's not us. We're not going to. And so I got to think that the team got some of that. And the Sunday quote that I thought was very telling was where O'Connell, this is where I think you're exactly right. He was mad and he was gritting it. He was trying not to say much, but where he said something along the lines about, I just told the team that if we're going to handle things differently when things go well, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Something like that. I mean, that was as close to a threat as you could possibly get.
Yeah. Well,
for him.
Yeah. And this team hasn't been embarrassed. They haven't faced, they faced some adversity in the games, comebacks and all that, but they haven't been embarrassed. Mm-mm. That was embarrassing for them to play that poorly in that stage. And so I got to imagine the competitors in that locker room, and there's some, some very prideful guys in there who have, been in the league a long time. Doesn't mean you're going to win, but I don't think you're going to see a hangover of like that, where it's like they may lose, but I don't think you'll see them wallow around and not regroup or respond in the right way based on what happened there. So
yeah, and to go back to, that's what's so weird, and we don't know how this was processed internally, but what was so weird about it was that game felt like the season was done.
yeah,
So it's like you can't, like, as a player, you're done now. That game's done. It's just
that was the fear. That was the
I
fear
know.
when we put so much on it, Judd. When we put so much.
And I said it's a great game. Like, I was looking forward to it. I was very disappointed by the result. But last week I was saying the season's not done. Like, this is the biggest regular season game in history. It's like,
Yeah,
they're not done if they lose. Like, those are the games where you're out.
yes, I know. Well, that was it. Like, because there was so much buildup, and yes, the getting the 1 seed, home field advantage, the rest, all that was such a carrot that it was almost like if you lost the game, well, you're doomed. You know, like now you got to go on the road, and you know. So that to me is where this biggest challenge for O'Connell of his season, maybe since he's been here, is like getting this team to say, you know, back to, you know, where they're saying, you know, they won 14 games. They're a good team. They had a really, really bad night against the best team. That doesn't mean that you can't get on a run here. And so I'm guessing he's digging deep in his bag of motivational saves to come out. And I think they'll regroup. And the other thing, Judd, is I do think it's really helped them to play Monday. Gives them an extra day to kind of sort through all, not just physically, but probably more so emotionally, to kind of just one more day removed from it, right? Because
absolutely.
It's just like fans. People I've talked to, like, really angry Monday, really, you know, and as the week goes on, you start feeling, okay, now they're in the playoffs. They got, you know, you start getting back to feeling different about the team.
The fact that O'Connell brought the team in to watch film on Monday for him,
that's another sign.
Like, they got home at 3 a.m. And by this time of year, if you're going to the playoffs next, win or lose in week 18, you're going to be like, see you on Wednesday or whatever it is. And the fact that he brought them in, I thought, that is a definite sign.
He's mad. He's mad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because the picture that's painted, and he is a good guy, but the picture that's painted is this, you know, cheerful, rah type of coach.
Yeah.
And there is a side, and it's been written about a bit, but there's a side of him we definitely don't see, and I think they're seeing it this week.
And we have kind of our start of the week on Thursday. That's typically the Wednesday. I'm curious to see what the message and tone is that day, tomorrow. Like, what
moved on.
That's what I'm guessing.
Right?
And that it's always interesting to get the vibe, starting from the head coach, but then working in the locker room, just kind of, you get a sense of how things are. I'm curious to see what the vibe is.
But what's weird is, at Access last Wednesday, I got the vibe that they were fine.
I did too.
This is where I do think it was a Darnold thing.
Well, it was.
Because I didn't sense any, like, ordinarily you can sense, right, that sort of anxiousness, intensity that's like sort of miscast. I went out there on Wednesday to just sort of get a read. I saw you there. And the only problem is that, at least publicly, Darnold, you can't, like, post-game, he was fine.
Yeah. But
and it's like, how can you be fine?
Yeah. And the thing was, I mean, the defense played really well, Judd. I
know they did.
Forget what happened at the end. But so it wasn't like they were that. It wasn't like across the board the whole team just laid an egg. The quarterback got rattled. He missed touchdowns.
Yes.
I mean, and that's where the focus has to be this week for O'Connell and Josh McCown and Wes Phillips and all those guys that are, you know, that focus so much on the quarterback. They have to have the right approach with Darnold and the game plan that they're giving him this week to get him back to feeling good about where he was at.
And you probably got to get a few of the players back as well from that one, because if I saw my QB play like that in a huge game, I'm probably like, oh, that wasn't good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
To your point, that was not an off day. It's not like, oh, he sort of struggled and they didn't win. That was like, oh my God, he's melting down and no one can stop that.
Yeah.
It was a heck of a time for it to rear its head, but I will say this, at least it didn't rear its head in a playoff game where you would have been done after that. So anyway.
That's it, yeah.
All right, Chipper, great stuff. Talk to you soon, and we'll talk to you on Purple Access next week.
All right, brother. We'll see you, man.
See ya. Bye.